The Javelina Jundred takes place this weekend, and in my mind it perfectly treads the line between highly competitive professional racing and a hugely inclusive party in the desert for the core trail running community. It might not have the same status and fanfare around it as some of the bigger events in the sport, but it's not far behind them, and it's getting more and more popular each year. To use a marathoning analogy, if Western States Hard Rock and UTMB are majors, this is Valencia. It's flat, fast and easy to get into, and as a Western States Golden Ticket race, it's perfect for the faster runners in our sport who may be coming from the roads and not yet used to the mountains to race their way into Western States. It's also great for those looking to have a breakout performance, as along with it being easier to enter than the big races, it gets lots of media coverage and a great live stream thanks to the awesome guys at Aravaipa. On the other side of the coin, it's one of only two 100-mile Golden Ticket races, the other being in Thailand, so if you're a 100-mile or long ultra specialist based in the US, this might be your best option. And even for those not looking to compete, this race just looks like a blast, with plenty of runners in Halloween costumes and the 5-loop format giving you the massive morale boost of running through the vibrant event village 5 times. In this video we'll be focusing on the sharp end of the race though, and I'll give you my thoughts on 3 runners from the women's race and 3 from the men's that I think you should keep an eye on, plus a handful of other names as this field is pretty stacked this year. But as always, I'm sure I'll miss someone that I should be watching, so let me know your picks in the comments. Let's jump into it. There is no doubt that Heather Jackson is a fan favourite. In fact, the most outrage I've experienced in the comments was when I left Heather out of my Western States women's field preview. I had good reason though. Firstly, the 5 women I previewed were proven world-class 100-mile runners, most of whom had previous success at Western States. Secondly, she had very limited experience on mountainous courses, although that won't be a problem this weekend. And the other reason for leaving her out was a concern around her pacing, which I still have going into this weekend's showdown at Javelina. But that doesn't mean I don't think she's one of the most exciting storylines in our sport at the moment. The former professional triathlete made the switch to trail running at this race last year. Not many start their trail running journey with a 100-mile run, but that shows just how impressive Heather is, both athletically and mentally, as I can't imagine how daunting it must have been to jump from your longest run being a marathon to a 100-miler. But Heather more than smashed it, leading for the first 3 loops before fading in the final third of the race, finishing 5th. She then lined up at one of the most competitive races in the calendar, Black Canyon, and led for most of the race again before dropping to 2nd place late on. And whilst those 2 race results are very impressive, especially for your first 2 trail races, her pacing needs to improve. In both instances, she pushed hard early before fading pretty hard late on, so it'll be intriguing to see what approach she adopts this weekend with a year of ultra running experience under her belt, and whether we'll see her at the front of the race leading at the end of lap 1 or 2. Interestingly, she said in an interview earlier this year, her hard from the gun approach comes from being one of the slower swimmers in the pro triathlon scene, meaning by the time she reached the run she'd always have gaps to close, and going all out from the start was the only way to stay competitive. Anyway, I am confident that race after race Heather is going to improve. Let's not forget that this is only her 5th or 6th trail race, and although that makes her a relatively inexperienced trail runner, she's a very experienced professional athlete who will know exactly what's needed to adapt and excel in this sport. And if she earns a golden ticket again, by the time we get to Western States, she may well be one of the favourites this year. Zach is no stranger to running incredibly fast for long periods of time. He's the former world record holder for 100 miles, sat on a track with a mind-melting time of 11 hours 19 minutes, which is an average pace of 6:37 per mile, or almost 4 sub-3 hour marathons in a row. And if that wasn't impressive enough, he carried on past the 100-mile mark to break the world 12-hour record, running just shy of 105 miles. He's not just a road and track ultra runner though, he's actually a former winner and course record holder here at Javelina back in 2016, with a time of 13 hours and 30 minutes. But after last year's sub 13 hour winning performance by Dakota Jones, Zach is realistically going to have to knock close to half an hour off his 2016 record if he wants to be in with a chance of a win or a ticket, as last year the final ticket was claimed in 13:05. Zach's also had an injury-ravaged year, suffering from a sacral stress fracture back in the spring, and he's only raced one 50k since, so his form is a bit of a question mark as well. Although his training indicates that he's fully recovered, clocking some pretty wild mileage throughout this training block, including a 150-mile week a couple of weeks ago. So if he's fit and he's anywhere near his best, then he's a solid pick. On the other end of the spectrum from Heather is Ragnar de Bats, who is likely the most experienced ultra runner in any race she enters. The former Trail World Champion, Skyrunning World Champion, current Western States Masters course record holder, Western States third place finisher and CCC winner has well over a decade of experience and a host of incredible results across a variety of differences, but is probably far more at home in the mountains, and there's very few races this flat on her record. With such a long and illustrious career though, I've no doubt she'll be able to adapt to the challenges of Javelina, but whether she can hang with the runners such as Heather, who are far more at home running quickly on the flat, is another story. Also, I'm not sure of the exact reasons behind these, but she's had 3 DNFs at 100 milers in the last 18 months. So if she's having repeat injury issues or perhaps issues with fueling, this isn't the sort of course that provides any respite or chance to hike and refuel. It's flat enough that it will require constant running, which is possibly more brutal than a mountainous course. Sub 18 hours at Western States is probably her most comparable result, and that is incredibly fast, so you can't rule her out here. With so many years of racing smart, my guess would be that she doesn't go with the lead pack and will probably appear in the top 5 by loops 3 or 4 before looking to take advantage if someone like Heather blows up again. Joe McConaughey is absolutely world class when it comes to long ultras and multi-day FKTs. He's won the Cocodona 250, finished a Barkley Marathon's fun run, is the current self-supported FKT holder on the Appalachian Trail and the Vermont Long Trail, the current FKT holder on the Arizona Trail, and the former record holder on the John Muir Trail and the Pacific Crest Trail. So with all this success over the extra long stuff, if you've not heard of Joe before, you'd assume his background would probably be through hiking or mountaineering. But in reality, Joe was a D1 college athlete with a 4-minute 12-second mile PB, so he has speed to go with that incredible endurance. In fact, Joe has raced plenty of fast competitive races and has had some impressive results, including here at Javelina, where he missed a golden ticket by 1 place back in 2021. It's safe to say luck is not on his side when it comes to golden tickets, as he's also missed out by a single place on 2 other occasions. Winning a 250-mile race though tells me that Joe is prepared to suffer for periods of time longer than most, so could that determination, coupled with his natural running talent and drive to finally get that elusive ticket, be a winning combination? I hope so. Joe seems like an incredibly interesting, quirky dude, and if you're unsure who to root for this weekend, invest some time into the incredible films of his FKT adventures, and no doubt you'll then be cheering for Joe. Riley returns as the highest placed finisher from last year, where they earned a golden ticket and ran the 3rd fastest time in history, finishing 2nd, also beating Heather Jackson by nearly an hour. That, in my mind, makes Riley the favourite here, and I think they'll be getting my fantasy free trail pick for the win. Riley is fast. 14:45 for 100 miles on this course last year is incredible, and after a disappointing Western States, by their high standards, finishing 14th, I'd imagine Riley is hungrier than ever to earn their way back. Perhaps even more motivated than last year, and if Riley can run anything like 14:45 again, I don't see many in this field who could challenge that. A possible hurdle that Riley will have to overcome is their nutrition and fueling. In a post-race interview last year, Riley explained that they were vomiting from loop 2, and that disappointing showing at Western States was also down to fueling. But Riley seems super dialed, is sponsor free, meaning they're not tied to any particular nutritional product, so has hopefully spent plenty of time in training, experimenting and improving on that. The only other hurdle I can foresee is the added pressure this year of being most people's favourite, and if Heather or some of the other young, hungry, random shredders in this field go off hard, does Riley feel like they have to go with them, or do they run their own race? As I say, Riley is my pick for the win. John finished 2nd last year, earning his golden ticket and running the 3rd fastest time in Javelina history with 13 hours 5 minutes. John has also won the fast and competitive Bandera 100k, and less than 2 months ago he followed up a relatively disappointing Western States with a 4th place at CCC. So yeah, some very impressive results at some highly competitive races. But I mentioned there that he ran Western States and CCC, 2 of the biggest races on the calendar, just 2 months apart, and now, less than another 2 months further down the line, he's going again. So will that be a factor here? Will he be feeling the fatigue from those gruelling efforts? To be honest, I'm nitpicking a bit there, and trying to find reasons why he might not win or claim a golden ticket. His performance last year, where he went toe-to-toe with Dakota until late on, was just so good, and his performance at CCC this year was arguably even better given the strength of that field. So yeah, John is a favourite in my eyes, he'll be getting my #1 pick, and a lot of fans seem to agree, and for good reason. Okay, I'll quickly run over some of the others to keep your eyes on, as this field is deep. On the men's side, you've got Ryan Montgomery, who I'd love to have included in my free to watch, as I think he's got a pretty good shot at winning this thing, given he's a previous second place finisher. He might even be my fantasy free trial pick for second place again this time, but bear in mind that he's already into Western States as a returning top 10 finisher, so if he claims second, the ticket will roll down. Then you've got everyone's favourite podcast sidekick Brett Hornig, who finished 4th last year and became the 8th fastest man in this race's history. There's also the incredibly fast sub 4 minute miler Matt Daniels and 2 hour 14 minute marathoner Ryan Miller, plus some exciting fast youngsters like Blake Slassengren, Ryan Raff and seemingly everyone's dark horse pick Preston Cates, all of whom will be taken on 100 miles for the first time. Oh, and keep an eye out for legendary 2-time Western States winner Hal Kerner. On the women's side, you've got Tara Dower, who won Run Rabbit Run just 5 weeks ago, Sarah Beale, who took down one of the legendary Ellie Greenwood's course records, winning the JFK 50 miler in 6 hours 5 minutes, which was also nearly half an hour quicker than Javelina course record holder Camille Herron. Then, making the young guns on the men's side look old in comparison, you've got 22-year-old Shea Aquilano, who finished 6th earlier this year at Black Canyon, and along with racing Javelina, she's already signed back up for Black Canyon again next year, so clearly has Western States in her sights. So there you go, those are my thoughts on who to keep an eye on, but as I said in the intro, this is the perfect race to have a breakthrough result at, so there'll be plenty of runners who I've not touched on who fancy a shot at those tickets. As always, let me know your picks in the comments. Big thank you to all my new subscribers over the summer, and apologies for the big break in content. Just to quickly make my excuses, I've actually been struggling with an injury, which has really killed my motivation and disconnected me from the running world over the last month. As I'm sure a lot of you can relate to, getting up for a run plays a big role in my mental health, and not being able to do so has really impacted my motivation to sit down and put time into this. But I'm running again now, and I'm stoked to watch the action at Javelina this weekend, so I'm sure it won't be long before I'm back again with more ultra running content. Drop this one a like if you've enjoyed it, remember to subscribe, thanks for watching, cheers.